Hey folks, yet another one of these IYV guitars. The interesting one with this one, from the top it looks the same, but if you remember the last one, had that sunburst back. This is completely different. It's sort of a dark chocolate brown, or almost a reddish brown finish on the back. So, and this is definitely a Jatoba or walnut board, probably Jatoba. So yeah, just a reminder that materials on these fluctuate. I'm thinking that because Indian Vina makes, Wolf guitars and some Harley Bentons and probably some of the all-in-one guitars as well. And I think they also make guitars for other companies. I can't remember offhand. One of the ones I heard of recently. I'm not sure which one it was. I can't recall. But because they make so many guitars for other companies, I'm wondering if the actual IYV guitars or the Indian Vina guitars just use sort of like the offcuts or what's left over from their production, because they differ quite a lot. I mean, that is way different from the back of the last one of these models I got just a week ago. And I've seen similar fluctuations in the Les Paul model that I've bought now, probably 4 or 5 of. But this video is about a question that came up on one of the Facebook boards. A newbie or somebody new to guitar and buying guitars and trying to assess guitars posted, and I'm ad-libbing this, paraphrasing rather. He posted a question on the board, and he said, I'm told, or I get the impression from reading posts on this board, that it's possible to buy a budget guitar, upgrade the parts, and have a guitar that is as good as some of the more recognizable brands. And immediately a slew of experts jumped on there, mostly to say no, that is a pipe dream. If you upgrade a budget guitar, you have an upgraded budget guitar. It will never compete with any of the full brands, and it's not really worth the money to upgrade those guitars. So I went on there and said, to have a blanket epigrammatic statement to just dismiss all budget guitars as not being worthy of upgrades and never being equal to well-known brands is absolutely ridiculous. It takes all the nuance and all of the gray area out of what is a complex question, has a complex answer. And I said, just very briefly, I said, depends on the budget company. I said, I've worked on lots of guitars, and some of these budget companies, and it's good that I have an IYV in my arms at the moment, because this is a case in point. Some budget companies, with upgrades of pickups and maybe other parts too, like the hardware and perhaps the tuner's nut and saddle if it's an acoustic, you can, in some cases, rival some of the brand names. Now, I'm not saying that if you upgrade this, it's going to be equal to a Gretsch White Falcon. I don't make those claims. I see a lot of those claims on YouTube, and I think they're silly and hyperbolic. You can make this guitar with an upgrade, this particular model and brand of guitar, with the upgrades and stuff, it will rival some well-known brands. Certainly Epiphones, probably some of the lower Guild stuff, Gretsch stuff, depending on which model you're comparing it to. Some of the lower-end Gretsches are, budget guitars in and of themselves. Also, it might rival, other Gibson-esque copies made by relatively well-known companies like the Ibanez Art Core stuff and what have you. That's just this particular model of guitar, and I found that all the IYVs kind of hold to that standard. They are upgradable, and they will rival guitars that are considered a lot higher. Not the top guitars, not the top echelon, but maybe some of the guitars in the mid-range. This will rival. However, that's not the case for all budget guitars. For instance, I've had some of the $100 guitars, like Larry's and Lick's Pros and Donner's, and well, Donner's are actually pretty good, I think. But some of the entry-level guitars that you can buy for $100 on Amazon, and they are upgradable. But even with upgrades, they're going to struggle to compete with, your Mexican Fenders and your even some of your upper Squier range stuff. But certainly it will compete with the lower Squier stuff. I was just talking to somebody who works in a Chinese factory. I don't want to give the name out, but he was telling me how the factory makes guitars right next door to where Squier makes guitars, and their quality is a lot better than the entry-level Squiers, and yet their sales are so much lower. So there's somebody who's, obviously they've got subjective bias there, but I kind of believe them because I've seen the guitars that they've put out, and I think they do rival and probably eclipse the Bullet series Strats and stuff like that. So some budget guitars, even though they can be upgraded, they're not going to rival top brand guitars, but they'll get close, depending on what upgrades you do and how good of a workman you are, how good your work is. But just say no, no budget guitar is ever going to be worth the money to upgrade. You might as well just buy, a Mexican Fender or an American Fender. I think is a ridiculous statement. It's such a sweeping epigram that, it just dismisses all of the complexity involved in the question. I mean, guitars are different from company to company. We found from various videos that IYV, some of the Fireflies, certainly Agiles, and some of the other budget companies are very competently made instruments with good core materials that can be upgraded to some success, and people have posted and made videos about those success stories. Even some top luthiers like John Robson and many others on YouTube. But there are also failure stories. There are companies that there are guitars that are entry level that we've tried to upgrade, and it was a struggle to really improve those guitars because there were just problems with the core of the guitar. It wasn't the parts that you could fix issues with. For a while I was, working with those Kozak guitars you get on eBay, and I just found too many problems and decided, this particular model for me is not really worth the hassle. Interestingly, I went back to them a few videos ago for that 7-string guitar and found that that guitar, a newer model, was much improved. So, I update my opinion about that brand because I have new data coming in to correct or update my views. But it's a complex question, and to say no, absolutely not, don't buy a budget brand guitar, I think is ignorant, it's outdated, and those types of brand snobs I think really are working on a paradigm that's 10, 15, 20 years old. The world's moved on since 3 companies ruled the world in guitar manufacturing. There's a lot of great options. Pricing is all over the map. I mean, there are some guitars that I buy at $200, like these IYVs, that, with just a good setup, rival $400 guitars. And then there are guitars that I buy at $400 or $300, and I think, they really could have sold this for $200 or $250. It's really not quite a $300-400 guitar. So it's different in each case. Every company has different materials, different standards of making, different factory operations, different distribution, different advertising. Some companies really sell their guitars at an amazing value price, and other companies, I think, overcharge. The guitars aren't worth what they ask for, and the market eventually corrects them over a few years because they just don't sell. And some companies survive on their names. They put out guitars that are substandard, but because it has a recognizable name on the headstock, they get away with it, at least with a certain part of the guitar playing population. So this is a really tricky, nuanced question, and I hate to see a new guitar player, somebody asking for information, being fed such a simple black and white answer, because it's just not true. So I hope that, they at least read my comment and thought, well, I'll do some research on particular brands and models. I'll look at people's videos or people's posts on guitar forums. I'll find out which guitars I can get for a good price that people seem to have a good experience with simple upgrades and mods. And I'll find out the ones that, people struggle with, where there aren't that many success stories. And have fun with it. Have fun with it, because, when you're investing $100, $200 in a guitar and you don't like it, if it's absolutely trashed and can't be set up, you return it. But if it's just something that you can set up and you think, it's really just not me, you can resell it. And a lot of times you can recoup what you paid, or maybe a bit less, and chalk it up to paying for a learning experience, if you like. It's not really a big investment to waste, $100, $200 on a guitar. What is a waste is investing $1,000 on a guitar just because they have a big brand name, and then being disappointed, because then you are about to lose a lot more money on the used market. So I think we need to steer new guitarists and people asking for information in the right direction, and not give glib, simple, convenient answers to questions when there is some complexity or nuance involved. And I hope that's what this channel does. So I just thought to make a video about it. What do you think? What do you think? I mean, I assume, since you all come to this channel, you find budget guitars, certain budget guitars, not all, to be worthwhile and lots of fun to upgrade. There's always a few among you who think that we're all wasting our times, that we should all buy just, tried and proven top brand guitars and stop messing around with these things. You're free to opine in any way as long as you're civil. So I look forward to hearing your responses. All right, folks. See you on the next one.